Daddykuna is real. That bothers me, yet is simultaneously undeniably hilarious. What's up, guys? Hello, I'm here, and here we want to do a nice little discussion on everything that comes from Sukuna being Yuji's father, uncle, half, something. There's a lot to talk about in so little time. So let's not waste any more time, and let's hop right into it. Editing me, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go. What's up, guys? That guy with a pencil here. Fun fact, I do happen to have it on me and keep it on me at all times. And another fun fact, Yuji Tadori now has it on him and keeps it on him at all times. And Ryoma Sukuna has it on him and keeps it on him at all times. And Kenjaku had it on him and kept it on him at all times. Essentially, Sukuna confirms at the start of 257 that yes, in fact, Yuji Tadori isn't just Kenjaku's child, but also very specifically the child of the incarnated half of Sukuna, aka Sukuna's twin. Now, notably, you heard me say Daddykuna is real, not necessarily the commonly known Kuna. And don't get me wrong, while I'm also a big proprietor of Kuna, I think it's actually very funny. It reminds me of many times with my own uncles and many other stories of other people with their own uncles. In reality, technically due to the laws of the Jujutsu system, Yuji Itadori is actually technically the son. And not even necessarily technically. If you consider the body and the soul being a uniform concept going by Kenjaku and Mahito's respective theorizing, and obviously the implications of idol transfiguration, by being two souls, and Sukuna very specifically, tasty, on Jin Itadori before Jin Itadori was allowed to be Jin Itadori, or before Jin was allowed to be whatever he was going to be named before they ended up popping out of their sick mama. Yeah, legally speaking, these two are father and son. Here's the thing. On a fundamental level, how much this impacts the story is almost simultaneously a 100 out of 100 and a 0 out of 100 because of what it means. Notably, this confirmation that Sukuna, kind of is the dad of Yuji, only does retroactive explanation for previous things that seem strange, but doesn't actually mean too much for the future. Notably, a lot of times when a big bad villain is revealed to be the father or relative or something of the main character, typically it'll mean something to their dynamic, I suppose, and that dynamic will end up drastically affecting the rest of the series. Think of your Luke Skywalkers and your Darth Vaders, think of your Scar from Lion King and your Simbas, think of insert any father to main character here, and you're going to have more creative conflicts born of that, more interest, more chaos. But notably, I don't think much of that will happen here. Notably, throughout the entirety of this chapter, despite the explanation of Yuji being Sukuna's kid in one way or another through the laws of Jujutsu, it doesn't necessarily matter for their dynamic at all. We don't even see Sukuna mention the fact that he's Yuji's father / uncle / weird thingamajig, I guess, donor, whatever you want to call it, because it's not necessarily relevant to their battle, nor has it been relevant to any of their interactions, because Kuna, or Daddykuna, has kind of just been a mean guy to Yuji, since forever and a day. And thusly, I don't even think if Sukuna brings it up, it'll give Yuji Itadori any pause. Notably, he didn't really know Jin. Jin was kind of just, his daddy. And that was it. This is the only memory that we've seen that Yuji has any sort of cognizance of. Other than that, Yuji's essentially a blank slate. So hearing that Sukuna's his father wouldn't actually really change much. And in fact, it's coming so late into the narrative that I don't think it really has the potential to change much. Because the question is, what would it do? Would it make Yuji suddenly want to stop fighting Sukuna? I doubt it. Would it give Sukuna any sort of edge by revealing that? No, not necessarily. There are no binding vows tied to that fact. All this does is kind of just clear up some things, and ironically enough raise a few more questions than it actually answers. The main reason I still think this is an important reveal, though, is it does do that. It clears up many things. Yuji Tadori, by being confirmed to be kind of the second coming of Sukuna, in the sense that he's literally kind of a second coming of Sukuna. If you get it, good. If you don't, even better. But with that being the case, all it does is rationalize why Yuji's so unbelievably powerful. It explains what Uraume initially feared, the idea of Yuji's potential being possibly equal to that of Sukuna, based on the fact that they share a similar bloodline. However, simultaneously, that doesn't necessarily mean all too much, other than the one major thing that made Yuji compatible with Sukuna in the first place. Essentially, see Yuji as sort of a specific lock, and Sukuna's fingers are the key. But notably, unfortunately, we know for a fact that Yuji isn't the only lock that fits the Sukuna key. With this battle, we see that Yuji obviously was able to maintain and adapt the abilities of Shrine, Sukuna's technique, into his own modern variation of it. But remember what Sukuna's currently inside right now. That sounded horrible and came out mostly wrong, but hey, so did Yuji, and so did Sukuna. But with that being the case, Sukuna's currently inhabiting Megami, which proves that the Sukuna fingers aren't necessarily only compatible with Yuji because he's very specifically Sukuna's kid. No, it seems like they can work with many different people. Now, of course, Megami himself is an exception in a bunch of different ways, from, being the son of one of the only, if not the only, naturally zero curse energy heavenly restriction user out there, being a descendant of the Zenin clan, one of the big three families, one of the great three cursed spirits. Like, there are a bunch of things that make Megami a super special well, I'm about to say even more than Yuji. Kind of not really. Yuji's also really, 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 really special. But, like, essentially the same tier. They're both special, but Yuji's whole connection, well, I was about to say familial or otherwise, but it really just is familial. It doesn't necessarily do too much to justify him being able to be Sukuna's vessel, but it does allow for the possible incarnation of Shrine, or Malevolent Shrine, as it's been translated in the proper translations, to Yuji. And that is good, that is nice, but once again, outside of this, which seems to be something that only comes from the engravement of Sukuna's cursed energy into Yuji's body anyway, I don't think it actually means too much, which is very interesting. Once again, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of these twists typically have more weight, more girth, more heft behind them, but notably, it's treated as something that's more so an accent piece and a clarification, as it's just dropped at the start of this chapter, with seemingly minimal provocation. Like, remember the end of 256? It was kind of just, Yuji landing his first Black Flash. Very big, but, like, still, nothing really provokes, oh, BT dubs, the main character is also my son, kind of. Yet, we don't really get anything from that. But what this also does kind of clarify is the idea that Yuji and Sukuna actually come from a notably very powerful bloodline that we just don't know the name of. Or they are specifically exceptions to the rule of needing to come from a powerful bloodline, because notably, it's confirmed that Sukuna only ate Jin because he was hungry, because of a blight his mother was suffering. As he says, maybe my mother was starving. Rather than starve myself, I ate my other half. Then the soul wandered about and mixed with not mixed, did something with Kenjaku that will not be said. But with that being the case, I don't know. It once again comes to the whole idea of Daddykuna actually just raising more questions than it answers, yet simultaneously not having too much weight on the narrative. Because this raises the question of, where did they come from? Notably, Sukuna is confirmed to be from the Heian era. Obviously, King of Curses from that time period. While Kenjaku is loosely confirmed, question mark, exclamation point. We still don't fully know about Kenjaku. Kenjaku's a weird fella, as Sukuna himself already admitted. We don't fully get the context behind Kenjaku, which also gets questions raised. We'll talk about that in a second. The main reason I find this so important is because a lot of JJK is built around bloodlines and history and backgrounds, and how that will have an implication on your potential and ability as a sorcerer. Yuji Todori was already confirmed to be special, but by confirming him to be the direct child or pseudo-child of the King of Curses does rationalize all his insane potential. But this does, once again, continue to raise questions about the origin of their potential, and why very specifically both are implied to have extremely powerful bodies relative to the rest of their caliber. Notably, a lot of the time up to this point, we chalked it up to Big Jaku, right? Like the whole idea that, well, Big Jaku probably did some direct experimentation upon Sukuna, or Sukuna's vessel, in this case Yuji Todori, who ended up being Sukuna's son through the case of Jin Itadori. But notably, now with this being established that, the body was kind of just taken by the soul being put into a new body, and then that body with Kenjaku, it seems highly unlikely that Kenjaku necessarily had much physical tampering, at least with whatever Yuji was when he was inside Kenjaku. And also, it just means that these two are weirdly, freakishly strong for no reason. Like, remember, Sukuna is noted to be an exception even without cursed energy. He mimics a lot of the properties of the Heavenly Restriction users, despite not being a Heavenly Restriction user. Megami, upon first seeing Yuji, is like, he's just like Zenin Senpai. AKA, he's just like Maki. AKA, he has properties of a Heavenly Restriction user. If albeit an incomplete one, while Sukuna definitely just has heavenly restriction properties, hopping off air, precognition, a lot of this stuff. The only thing he doesn't have is immunity to domains, because having cursed energy. But why? I don't know, but it's a trait that's apparently inheritable through Yuji, which is interesting. But the final little weird detail that comes from Daddykuna being Daddykuna is the hypothetical separation between the body and the soul, despite the unity of Sukuna. Notably, Sukuna's perfection. He's the top of the line, cream of the crop, next level stuff, right? And Yuji Todori, by being the next incarnation of Sukuna, being his child, obviously also has that cream of the crop potential. Obviously not the 4 arms and the 2 mouths just yet, but still, it's clearly there. You can see by the fact that the man lands 7 black flashes back to back to back to back to back to back to back in this chapter. But the question now becomes, okay, so all that's the case, but why could this happen? Notably, Sukuna is very vague, and I think it's because Sukuna himself doesn't even fully know, but Sukuna says this. Perhaps his mate was my other half reincarnated, and possessed the same soul. My mother was starving. Rather than starve myself, I ate my other half. Then that soul wandered and mated with Kenjaku. So, once again, Sukuna is whole. That's confirmed by his very existence, his level of power, and so on and so forth. But apparently he's not, because Jin's soul was able to wander off. So this loosely confirms that the body and the soul aren't necessarily as tight as we think, and that somehow, and I very much say somehow, Kenjaku was able to get their hands on it. Like, the individual part of the soul, despite Sukuna consuming the body, which in JJK is meant to be the source, or at least directly tied to the soul. I don't know. The only rational idea I've been able to come up with up to this point is that, hypothetically, Kenjaku managed to rip the Jin part of Sukuna out of Sukuna when he was turning Sukuna into fingers, but you think Sukuna would notice that. His soul was meant to be extremely powerful. He obviously consumed his sibling himself, and his soul, ironically enough, reflects his vessel, or at least in the case of Yuji, but obviously that's his kid, so it makes sense that he would reflect that. But still, it's weird. How did Kenny do that? And how did Jin come to be? Notably, JJK is actually a series that doesn't tend to imply a reincarnation cycle, at least not for the most part. All the sources just imply, oh yeah, we got. Like, we fall. We're done. Like, that's just it. There's no, like, hope for reincarnation, any focus on anything like that. So the question now becomes, okay, how much of a test tube baby was Yuji? Like, why did Kenjaku wait 1,000 years? Was Jin a natural reincarnation? How was he recognized as a natural reincarnation? Is it just because of his appearance? We don't know. The fact that Daddykuna is Daddykuna once again raises more questions than it answers, clarifies some minor things, still leaves enough super duper vague, from their level of physical strength to Yuji's weird mutated arms to Sukuna even being a 4-armed being in of himself, a two-faced being, the measure behind Sukuna's mask and his extra big super large arms or eyes, everything. It still seems very, very strange, and once again, just brings Kenjaku back as this weird pseudo-author to JJK in, like, the weirdest way possible. Like, bro actually got backshots from the main villain, kind of. After the main villain's other half reincarnated, even though the soul of the main villain should have consumed the soul of the other. I don't know. And that's fantastic. Notably, I'm fine with Daddykuna being something. I'm fine with Daddykuna likely not necessarily having too many narrative implications from this point on, at least in terms of the dynamic between Sukuna and Yuji changing. This is mainly for us as readers. Notably, I don't even think Urume is going to necessarily mention to Akari out of nowhere, oh, by the way, that Yuji Itadori boy, he's actually the son of my glorious, juicy, scrumdiddlyumptious master, king of curses, Lord Sukuna. Akari would, if anything, just shrug and be like, okay. And then Yuji also, upon hearing that, would also just be like, okay. But I think that's fine. I think the clarification this provides is good, and I think the mystery this provides is good as well. I think this does end up opening the door, once again, a door that I thought I could have sworn was closed, but a door that it gets open to, hypothetically, I don't know, Kenjaku still having even more narrative weight and implications, because now this implies that Kenjaku knows how to interact with souls, even without a body. Something to do possibly with the cursed realm, and any sort of interactions that go with that. Meaning, despite the fact that Kenjaku is, of course, a pierced head right now, a journey of 1,000 years at its end, Daddykuna's opened the door. And I'm very excited to see where that door leads. However, that's what I think about the whole Daddykuna situation. I think that's all the narrative implications, the character dynamics that could come from it, the things that it answers, the things that it leaves vague. But what do you guys think about Daddykuna? Do you like the reveal? Do you like the twist? Do you like how it was revealed? Please let me know all that and more in the comment section down below. If you made it all the way to the end of this video, please leave Unc Kuna to confuse people. Leave Kuna in the comment section down below. And just thank you so much for watching. Please remember to leave a like, share, comment, and subscribe, and make sure you hit that little notification bell so you do not miss out on any videos that come to the channel. Also, I do have a Patreon down below where you can support me for as low as $1 a month. Get things like exclusive videos, early content, and more. You also now become a member of the channel for as low as $3 a month to get the same perks and more. So those perks include the live reaction to the very next chapter of Jujutsu Kaisen, ad-free variations of all my videos, and if you become a $25 patron or $25 member, you can order whatever video you want. Also, if you want to make a one-time donation or a one-time video request, you can click the link to my Ko-Fi, which is in the description down below. I'd like to thank you guys so much for watching once again, and hope you guys have a wonderful day. This is that guy with the pencil, writing off. I would like to give a thank you to all $3 members: so Connor Plays, Greyhound, Atkins Void, Astro, Eternal Flame, Red Wolf 4765, G Prosper, and Paris Arnold. And I'd like to give a thank you to our $5 patrons: Steron, Sean, Midnight Lord 21, Kevin, and Igneo. And I'd like to give a big old thank you to our $7 members: Autumn Mornings Lazo and Sick Addiction. And I'd like to give a big old thank you to our $10 member, Robbie Uchiha. And I'd like to give a gargantuan thank you to our $10 patrons: Panda Goat, Joaquin, and Idemokami. And I'd like to give a gargantuan scrumdiddlyumptious thank you to our $25 patron, ChinaDoll09. And I'd like to give another gargantuan gargantuan I have no idea what that word. Thank you to our $25 patron, Calvin Elder.